Hi everybody, and welcome to our complimentary webinar, which is brought to you today in partnership with NICE, Auscontact's national gold sponsor. The webinar today is entitled Your WFM Secret Sauce, the right mix of agent autonomy, automation, and accuracy. In the spirit of reconciliation, Auscontact acknowledges the traditional custodians of country throughout Australia and their connections to land, sea, and community. We pay our respect to their elders past and present and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples today. Today's webinar will run for approximately 60 minutes. And during that time, with the help of today's special guest, Nadia Yuman, we hope to spark your interest and really engage you in a conversation, as well as provide some great ideas for you to take back to your respective businesses. To round off the session, we'll have some Q&A at the end, and we're really looking forward to not only hearing some great information, but really challenging you to participate and engage throughout. So I'm Fran Southwood. I am the CEO of Auscontact, and I am your moderator for today. While we're waiting for everyone to join us, let's use the time to quickly run through some of the housekeeping things with you. Remember, we really are looking for you to interact with us today. We want to maximise the benefit that you take away from the session. There's no need to take too many notes, as we will provide you all with a recording of the webinar, which is fantastic. It lets you come back and check in and utilise that to potentially help drive further conversations. To interact with us, we would like you today to use the Q&A button on the control panel. You can ask questions and or make comments for Nadia or myself from time to time, but remember we will have a full Q&A session at the end of the webinar. So even if you want to type them as we go along, so then you won't forget to ask them. If you are listening through headphones or speakers and you experience any issues with your internet connection, please note that on the control panel, you can click the raise hand button. And if you do that, one of our Auscontact team will jump in and rush to your aid, try and help you get back on track. Or you can revert to the registration confirmation email that you would have received. And on there, you've got all of the relevant phone numbers, access codes, to make sure you can get back in and join in the conversation. So I know that many of you are extremely familiar with asking questions, but what we might do as a starting point is actually try out the Q&A function here today. So the Q&A button on the control panel, just in case, and I'm just going to throw a question out to you just so we can make sure it's working for you. What city today is crippled with train strikes? I know it's a little topical.
I know the answer to this one.
Let's see if everyone else knows it. I'm pretty sure there'll be a few in the audience that do. And here's a hint. I had to fly into that place today, and I was surprised at the lack of traffic anywhere in the city getting out to where I was heading to. But anyway, there you go. Made my morning very, very easy.
We all stayed home. It got too hard.
Definitely don't blame you on that. So we've got quite a few people using it, which is fantastic. We're seeing that working now. And of course, you're all right. And it is potentially Brisbane as well from someone, but most assuredly it is Sydney. And no, Emma, it's definitely not sunny Cairns, which is kind of nice. But I think Sydney is had continued ongoing challenges over the last few weeks, certainly that I've been hearing about. But anyway, so well done, everybody. You know how to use it, so we're expecting big things from you throughout the session today. Don't forget that during today's webinar, we will also be giving away a prize for the best question asked during the webinar. Now, I won't be voting, so it'll be voted by Nadia, and that best question will actually win a Jabra headset, so a Jabra Evolve 275 headset, which sounds pretty good. So make sure you get those questions in, and if you stay right through to the end of the webinar to be eligible for that prize, we'll then get Nadia to elect and pick the best question voted on by her. So stick around right to the end for that. So I'd like now to introduce our speaker for today, and certainly many of you would be very familiar with Nadia, certainly a familiar voice to the Auscontact audience. Nadia Human is the WFO Solutions Manager for APAC at NICE. Nadia, I'm going to say welcome. Thank you for today. We've had an incredible response to the webinar. I know a lot of that's to do with the fact that people love hearing from you and, you know, the insightful information that you share. So welcome, and over to you to get us started today.
Hey, thank you so much, Fran. I particularly like that I'm in charge of this best question. We used to do the most asked questions and we were just getting hammered with just like volume over quality. So today we're going for quality. It may be something that just stumps me and I can't answer. That's always interesting and challenging. So keep that in your back pocket. It's a great prize. And, you know, see if you can stump me. Yeah. You guys are always challenging. So today we're going to focus on this WFM secret source. It's definitely a challenging time. This quote, when the world is predictable, you need smart people. When the world is unpredictable, you need adaptable people. So I got given some of this collateral and I went and Googled who is Henry Mintzberg, and he's a Canadian academic. He's written quite a few books. But I liked this quote, and I think it's particularly relatable to us in WFM. So we've had this era of stability. And yeah, of course, there was flux and there was different things that happened. There's been the advent of, you know, multi-skilling and then digital, and there's been, you know, changes in strategy that we've needed to adopt. But now we have this unpredictability. And so we need to be more adaptable, perhaps than smart. So a bit of a focus on customer service in 2022 and how does WFM come into this sort of overarching strategy. So I sit in a unique role in NICE. So my role is often very technical. Some of you on this thread will know that we've had some very technical discussions on this call rather. And so a big part of the initiatives that we're seeing at the moment is that companies are future-proofing their customer service stacks. And that could be things like being able to capture an entire customer journey, migrating things to the cloud, looking at your channel diversity and deflection strategies and things like that. Data, of course, is the underlying thing and is driving a lot of the calling the EX orchestration. But for us, this is our heartbeat, right? Initiatives to humanize the contact center are now front and center. So I've always been someone, even from the very beginning of my journey in workforce management, that to me, it was never about numbers. It's always been about people. And to me, those people is the customer. I'm still remain a very customer focused person, and everyone in NICE knows that. That's what you learn as a contact center agent, to be customer focused. But then it's the people that we manage. So to me, it's always had heart and it's had soul, and there's an ecosystem of numbers around that. And one thing that the pandemic has brought to the fore is how do we use workforce management now to bring that love into your contact center, to make your place a great place to work, and to differentiate you from all the other customer contact centers that are bloody begging for staff, right? How do we use workforce management to bring that heartbeat, to humanize initiatives? So for me, this is like back to my passion about workforce planning, right? So a little bit about speaking to the choir. You guys know this sort of stuff, right? So high employee engagement matters. This has come from Gallup. When an employee is engaged, we see a significant uplift in productivity, massive reduction in absenteeism. Our CSAT improves by around about 10%. And of course, profitability, which is super important, also increases. We reduce churn, increase first call resolution, all of those things have come. This has been true for a very long time. Always we have known this, right? And so we're going to early on just check that you're all still there and involved, have a little poll. So maybe Fran, we're ready for poll on slide number 5. So according to Microsoft's Work Index report, what percentage of people are likely to consider leaving their jobs within the next year? And this is not just from Microsoft, people who want to leave Microsoft and go to somewhere else. It's just in general. What percentage of folks do you think are likely to consider leaving their jobs? So we'll just give people time to vote. Sorry, I'll just clear that message. It should be on Do Not Disturb. And Fran, just let me know when to reveal the number. Is everybody still voting?
I think we've got a lot on there now, so I think we can.
All right. It was a low ball question. It was a softball, as they say. Put my focus back. 41%, right? And okay, well done, team.
Look at those results.
Yeah. The numbers are pretty close. So even the 56% got a reasonable response rate, and so did 28. All of those numbers are pretty rotten. So we can all agree that some are just more rotten than others, but 41% are considering leaving. And like, if you think about that, if you think about yourself as a person, you haven't left, but you're thinking about leaving, like, what does that do to the way that you interact with people at work? What does that do to the way that you handle an interaction, the way that you show up and how present you are? So I don't know if anyone's heard, like, I like to watch the news, and I like to look at a lot of trends around job ads and the way people word things and what filters through on this, the news, right? This thing like quiet quitting. Quiet quitting is where you do like the bare minimum of your job and nothing more. So you're there, but you're not really there. And so if you think about 41% of people who are thinking of leaving, like, what are they like in the meantime? How do we get them back in? We get that little heart back and people loving where they are. Okay. So I Googled this. This is about like 10 days old, this slide. Just how many people are thinking of going, and what is the state of this so-called great resignation. And you know, this is, you know, so we said 41%, Microsoft said 41%. In Australia, we're looking at 48%. 15% are already looking. I don't know about yourselves, but if you go into LinkedIn, you go into your messages, you're probably getting spammed with, oh, do you know someone, or could you, or whatever, all these different jobs that normally they probably wouldn't reach out to you for, all sorts. So people are looking to leave, and we know that. I've just come back not long from India, and I spoke to a customer there in the travel vertical. Their time to attrition is 3 months. The average tenure before attrition of this many thousand seat contact center is 3 months. I thought, oh my God, India, wow, holy moly. And then I came to Australia and I spoke to, I'll just call it financial sector. Their tenure before attrition over this period has been 6 months. Like, by the time you just say hello and show them where the bathrooms are, they're leaving. Like, how do we keep these people with us, right? So employees are 43% less likely to experience burnout when they have a choice in what tasks they do, when to do them, and how much time to spend on them. Interesting, right? Now, if I think about my own job, there's certain things that I just loathe doing, and I know that I shouldn't be doing them. And so it's very, very frustrating to me when I get caught up in them. And then there's things like this that I know this is what I should be doing and where I add most value. And so if I think about, if I'm loaded in that sphere that I think doesn't add any value, it's just like nuts and bolts stuff. You feel like your brain's just going 10 to the dozen all the time. You feel like you're burned out. And now this is a very interesting sort of concept to us in WFM, because it goes against everything that we normally would plan towards. People choosing what they do, how much time they're going to spend on it, when to do it. We've never really given people a choice about when to do anything. So, all right. People are likely, lots of people are looking to leave. We know that an engaged employee drives productivity. We've known that forever. But this is interesting, right? So even though the duration of a shift, let's call it, let's put it in our language, the duration of a shift is maybe the same, it's 8 hours. If they're burdened, if they're given this choice about how to consume that time, less likely to experience burnout. Interesting, eh? So what levers do we have for autonomy in the contact center? And this is really, again, things that we've been saying for a long time is now coming to the fore. So the ability to switch channels or tasks. And WFM is an interesting thing because you need the technology to support some of these strategies, and then you need the operation to come on board with you as well. So things like, if you think about the olden days where we just had a voice switch, for example, and then a bunch of different channels, a lot of you, frankly, were still like this. Some customers have moved to an omni-channel contact center that's delivering a variety of interactions right to the employee desktop. But the ability to switch tasks, okay, based on their skill profile is something that we could look to accommodate. The opportunity to take on value tasks, just doing a time check, to fill idle time, do something else. Flex time, shift swaps, split shifts and shift bidding. I'd give anyone a headset if you can say that fast 10 times without sounding like you're swearing. So this is interesting. I spoke to, again, I've just spent a lot of time in India. I spoke to a bank in India, who's now adopted split shifts, and they never thought that they would because they are no longer requiring people in a specific location. They've been able to absolutely deconstruct their schedules and rebuild them, and now start to offer smaller packets of work once the commute is actually out of the equation. So that's been a lever that they've been able to pull to drive some autonomy. The ability to work from home or on site. And that's interesting because to us in WFM, I don't really care technically if you're in Timbuktu or Tamworth, as long as you're actually doing the work. But it's really making sure, I guess, that you have the right practice around that, that those people don't become disenfranchised. We can accommodate things like multi-site, multi-time zone scheduling. Or we're going to talk about adaptive breaks. I don't know how I feel about it, frankly, but it's an option. It's another lever for you to pull. Self-scheduling your own breaks and lunch to support healthy work-life balance. We'll come to this. So setting the scene, lots of people want to leave. We don't want them to leave. The market, so even in India and ASEAN, even the US is in the same boat where the inflation, right, is we're all getting higher interest rates on our mortgage and inflation is rising. So we're reaching a point where everyone's scrambling for staff, and the lever of maybe telco A paying their people more than telco B is starting to get to a flat line. You just can't keep paying people more. And so this is where the operations look to us and say, okay, what levers can you pull to help put us front and center when we go to market and look at attracting people and then retaining people. I saw a job ad. I like looking at the job ads for a company that I know in Victoria. I've never seen this before. In their ad, they actually wrote, when you come to work for us, we will respect your cultural heritage and background, and we will respect the holidays of your culture. So you get Eid if you're Muslim, you'll get Diwali if you're Indian, Christmas. Now, I thought, oh my God, how clever is that? So from WFM, that means nothing to me. Although you want to check how many public holidays Indians get, because they seem to get a lot. But if you did the math and worked out the amount of leave days, and you just all it was them taking some creative thinking around that 20 days and making sure that people who had a cultural preference or some way of accommodating it, but that was baked into their go-to-market strategy, things like that. So we've always thought about part-timers for parents, for uni students, but I thought that's cool and creative. I've never seen that before. So from a scheduling perspective, how a little bit of product, but not too much, but how NICE provides agility for the agents. So before and after and during the scheduling process. So before, availability, okay, that's been around forever. We can do date range availability. We can do preferences, very broad array of preferences. I always just caution with preferences. Don't offer things that people can never get. If you have an EBA that has a lunch length preference, don't let people offer preferences for lunch lengths because you can't give that anyway. But during the scheduling process, so self-scheduling, I love this. Do it yourself. I don't want to be involved. And that's an interesting concept for WFM because we've been like this over the schedules. We're so in control of it. Let it go. If you have the technology to set up business rules, let's us spend more time doing strategic things and let the employees boost their own engagement through self-serving. Machine learning, okay, some sort of bug who's joined my session. This is about being able to create a simulation model that really dynamically understands exactly what's going on in your contact center at the time. And I want to just put in there as well, be really careful about looking at your requirements if your digital channel mix is starting to eclipse the voice or perhaps has grown, because the WFM will struggle during that process. Okay, after the schedule is published, swaps, trades, we've been doing that forever. We're going to look at some of the automatic adjustments of breaks and lunches. We've been doing this for a long time, so being able to understand the exact routing rules. We've even taken that to a new level now. So we're doing things like being able to create a WFM plan that understands, again, from a channel mix, things like that an email could be interrupted by a phone call, that a message could be interrupted by a chat, but nothing will interrupt a phone call. So having the technology at your fingertips to make sure that that's considered when it comes to understanding requirements, you know, in today's modern age. Fairness. Okay, if there's one thing that drives contact center employees nuts, it's when they perceive that they're being treated unfairly when compared to their peers. So making sure that fairness and equity around shift allocation, particularly if you are opening up more flexibility, is really important. And this one in the middle has always been critical, so I'm going to skip by it. We know that we need to construct a WFM that doesn't break business rules. So nice WFM scheduling with machine learning. I won't read out every bullet point there, except to say we pretty much accommodate every kind of scheduling approach that you might want to take. This has been really interesting, looking at people go back and look at scheduling, because WFM for us anyway has been able to do all of this forever. We haven't gone and retrofitted the technology in any way in WFM to behave differently to accommodate for these flexible schedule model approaches. What it's more so been is that if you think back to Mr. Canadian academic on the first slide, right, he said that when things are predictable, we need smart people, but when they're unpredictable, we need adaptable people. And this is where, if you think about yourselves and your WFM tools, you've probably had the ability to do all this all the way along. But we're operating in a very even cadence where we use the same approach every time. So when people want to come back and look at the whole array that's available to them in the technology, they're obviously sometimes a little bit lost. Some of these go in and out of vogue. I think if you stay around WFM long enough, you see little trends creep in, and everyone's interested in something, and then it disappears away. Team-based scheduling used to be a thing. I don't know anybody who does that anymore. Seat limits, when it came in and then went away and then came back. So seat limits is interesting because for locations that had, you know, meter square restrictions because of COVID, they were able to use seat limit based scheduling to say, even though this location requires 300 FTE, I'm not going to ever staff it over 150 to make sure that there's a separate desk between each workstation, things like that. So all of that is available in our WFM. So big picture, matching employee needs with staffing needs. So this has always been important to us. To me, this has always been something that's very, very important. I can remember being a scheduler. So I was a scheduler for quite like 5 or 6 years in a WFM team where I had to do everything, forecast, scheduling, and the real time. And scheduling is always the most tricky because it impacts people's lives. And I've always taken it that seriously. You're asking for 40 hours for people's lives. Why can't we create schedules in a way that keeps the business happy, but also the staff happy as well? Excuse me. So looking at things like how do we allocate time off, extra hours, work-life balance, all that sort of stuff, and make it again a great place to work. But we still have the underlying fundamental of why we exist, which is to make sure that we're evenly balanced, that we're operating within operational costs and targets. This is some of the opportunities that exist in the NICE WFM suite. I'm going to show a little bit more of these as we go along, and we will look at some of the automation capability. We spoke about accuracy being a part of the secret sauce. Now, I didn't call it secret sauce because I'm not really any chef, but it came with a term of secret sauce. And one of the ingredients is accuracy. And oh my God, accuracy, right? If we can't go on this journey of self-service and automation and all of these other things if the foundation of the house is wrong. Yeah. And so we have in NICE WFM AI forecasting. So we've brought data science to the masses, right? You can, even I could run, I've always been more of a people person. I'm not someone who loves to sit and look at spreadsheets, right? So as I said, to me, WFM is always about people. But even myself, I could go in and run a forecast. I could test 100 different scenarios using all these model variants. We go back, we have a best pick option, which goes and tests all of these scenarios for you, works out the lowest residual, the lowest mean absolute percentage error. And it will say this model with this variance will produce you the most accurate forecast. Yeah, at a click of a button. Yeah. So already foundationally, we're giving you far greater sophistication. We don't just say, look at the last 10 weeks and 20% for this week and 15% for this week, even though the original weighted moving average still can sometimes be the best approach because it's simple. It's easy to interpret and understand. But now we can take it to another level. Some of you may have seen me present this slide before, and I'm just going to hurry it up a little. The reason why I have this in this deck is, as I mentioned, part of it is accuracy. Now, when work looks like this, and for a lot of us, it actually does. So if you can see down the bottom, it's got a timeline of day 1 and day 2, right? So this is an employee. This is me being an employee, and they've come to work. And remember, at the start, we spoke about task switching. We spoke about allowing people possibly to choose what task they're going to do. Let's just go with that and imagine that this is the scenario that it's resulted in. And by the way, this is not that exotic. A lot of people are actually working like this. So the email comes in, then I chit chat backwards and forwards with Fran, and I are chatting about getting ready for this event. Then my computer goes out of focus. I go and get my mobile phone from inside. Then we keep chatting. Then the email goes, I send a return email out. This escalates into a phone call. I'm on a phone, I have some incoming phone calls. Then I go to my lunch. Then I'm dedicated to social media. Then the next day the email goes out. What is the staffing requirement for that? Yeah. So now your WFM has to be able to understand that certain work items will interrupt other work items. It has to know that some of them are occurring in essence simultaneously. The WFM has to be able to solve for asynchronous. What happens if a message comes in and then somebody responds to it 12 hours later? Elevation. How do we account for the fact that this phone call wouldn't have been a phone call if it wasn't for one of the previous interactions, perhaps via an email? So now what are we talking about? Multi-step, multi-flow work forecasting. Dedicated, we're used to this, but even a lot of the WFMs can't do dedicated for channels. They think everything is a voice. And out of focus. So we have a situation now where I spoke about accuracy. You have to be able to model for that. Some of you are very far on this journey. Others are progressing, or they want to get to this point. One of the great things about my job is even I speak to a lot of customers in all different countries throughout Asia, in all different verticals, and there's like themes. It doesn't matter if they're a telco, if they're a BPO, if they are in banking. It's things like you'll hear words like holistic, utilization, pockets of inefficiency. They want to see the whole thing. Yeah, they may not have control over it, but they want to be able to plan for the whole thing end to end. So if you have, remember I said always WFM is technology and it's practice, these two things. So if you have a WFM that still thinks everything's voice, if it's not integrated to all the other channels, then we're finding that it's difficult to keep driving value and then supporting the business as they move on to these fun and shiny and cool self-service options, allowing people to task switch, allow people to pick their own shifts if this is wrong. Because you're going to go and try a strategy and you won't have the requirements right, and the rest of it will fall down. I've actually had a couple of customers who have rolled out chat channels and had to switch them back off because they weren't able to accurately understand that just because you open up a new channel doesn't necessarily take it away from another one. It may introduce a whole bunch of new customers who could never be bothered calling you up before. So it wasn't right. So the WFM needs to solve for this. So what do we do about it at NICE? We've always been able to do multimedia forecasting. We've always had, we are renowned for being able to very accurately understand the required in a multi-skill environment and presenting that as a multi-skill efficiency factor. But now we can do more. So we can model your plans off the in-focus or the elapsed AHT, and that means very different things to very different people. So is the AHT of the chat yellow box to yellow box? Yellow box is 1, AHT, this is 1. Or is the AHT of this chat from yellow box A to yellow box F? There's no right or wrong answer, but for some organizations are more focused on customer journey. Others are, I have my own 2 cents. I just want to know how my employees' time is being consumed, because that's my focus, but we could do both. In WFM now you can define channels, social, co-browse, etc., and then we can create a plan, very simple, about how those channels interact with each other. And how they can barge in on each other. We've rewritten our mathematics. Yeah, and this is the sort of stuff that I watch Product House spend a year going over and rewriting the algorithms in NICE WFM to now be able to understand multi-skill and multi-session efficiency. And it's really hard for me because I go to demo it and you can't like break open code and show people like this is the maths necessarily, but it's very key to the foundation of the house. So it's going to move forward and we're going to talk about automation. So that was another ingredient of this sauce. It shouldn't be all or nothing. So I want to talk about what we can do. Again, we're talking about boosting employee engagement, and we are talking about automating what we can. Yeah, so the WFM team will spend more time doing creative forecasting and all the things that are more strategic. So it's an interesting thing in WFM. If you think about the way you interact with your bank, for example, there's so much that you can do yourself these days. So as I mentioned, I traveled to India. I notified National Australia Bank through the app that I was going to India. They asked me what kind of transactions was I likely to use, the duration of the trip. All of that was done, and my cards were set accordingly to the rules that I defined in the app. I didn't speak to anyone. So when we get to WFM, if you have to think about it in that context, we're all getting older, but the people we employ are getting younger. They expect that kind of service, that kind of self-service capability when they come. Actually, hell, even I expect it. I really don't want to have to email someone and put my hand up. Can I change this? Can I do that? Every time I want to make an adjustment. So have that mentality, right? And again, people love this. I love it. Let them do it. Leave me out of it, but I'm going to set up the business rules that drive the right outcomes. So in this case, what you're seeing is an adjustment on short notice. So the lady's child is sick. In the mobile app, she can see a whole host of options that are available to her. This is tailored to her. It knows her skill profile, it knows her shifts. It's saying you could move a part of your own shift, for example, or you could take time off. So if I go back, this request swap, it's saying actually we're not that busy. If you want to, you could take from 7 till 8:30 out of your shift and give it back to me at another time. And I'll tell you which times we have available for you to make it up. Now, that kind of interaction is really annoying as a workforce planner because it's twofold. When someone wants to take time off and make it up somewhere else, you've got to look at today, you've got to change today's schedule, then you've got to look at the other day, and then you've got to change that schedule as well. All this could happen in the mobile app. Going very fast now because I'm just aware of time. So we eliminate all the guesswork. We eliminate approval wait time. We can automate WFM offers and automate updates to the schedule. So as soon as this person makes this workflow and hits next and it gets approved, it will write straight to her schedule. We can send an email notification as well to let them know about extra hours and that their request has actually been approved. So in this case as well, we're again talking about automation. So we're saying that an additional shift is available. So remember we said back to the start, what was it like? I should have had another poll. 43% of people, we can reduce burnout if they can choose, it was what they were working on and when. I think was one of the other ones, and I'm missing another point there. But in this case, we've said an additional shift is available on this date and time. Would you like to accept it or not? And again, it's all business rules driven. So if Jess or Fran or I looked at our mobile app, we would get different opportunities with different times based on how we can contribute overall to the skill pool. Response has been registered, off you go. No one's been involved in that. They didn't call anyone. They didn't ask anyone for their schedule to be updated. It just happened. So it's proactive, targeted offers. And it's full transparency into what's being pushed. So easily updated preferences. So this lady here may have a preference for the type of shift opportunities she wants to receive. So when we're rolling out a communication strategy such as this, it's really important to create a line of communication that frankly doesn't annoy people and send them a bunch of garbage shift offers that they're never going to want to work anyway. I heard an interesting stat on the news the other day. It wasn't about nice WFM. It was just about apps in general. And it said that the percentage of apps on all of our devices that are actively used is less than 10%. So if you go and look on your own device, there's probably only a handful that you are regularly engaged with. We don't want this to become that. Yeah, one of those apps. We can't force people to download WFM onto their mobile device. And I can't force people to interact with it either. So we give the employee the opportunity to create a preference menu. So hello WFM, I know that you have extra work opportunities on Saturday morning, but on Saturday morning, I like to take my child to soccer. So please don't ever send me any shifts notifications about Saturday morning until soccer season is finished. And then I will change my preferences and then I may get that type of shift offer because I've made myself available. And so this is a way that we can help have them brought into the conversation and we're not just spamming them with junk. Okay, I love this feature. I wish that I had this as an employee, right? So what the guy on the left and what the thing on the left is saying, the picture, something's happened. You've woken up and something's happened, right? And so you need to let the organization know that you're not coming in or you want to negotiate. So you know that in this case, we're saying a tradesman needs to come to the house. They've said they're going to be there in the next 1 to 2 hours and we believe them. And so we've rung up our manager. Typically, this is what would happen. You would ring up and say, I need to be 2 hours late. Can I please make up the time somewhere else? What this is saying is that in the app, it will let the employee know that we don't actually really need you right now for those particular hours. And in this case, it's presenting them with an opportunity to move a portion of their shift someplace else. What I really love about this is it gives the employee the ability to self-schedule. So they're swapping with themselves, with their own shifts. If you think about that scenario and what it would have otherwise looked like, I tell you what, it would have looked like, hello, can I please take, they might have just rung up sick, right? Is the first one, because we don't really know if he's going to be here. They might have just come in late, or they might have had to use their leave. Yeah. Or at the last, we have granted the swap, but it took up everybody's time negotiating, as I said, updating today's schedule and moving it. Sometimes as well, sometimes you wake up and you just don't feel like working. You're not actually sick. There's something wrong with you. You're just tired. And that hits us all from time to time. And so to have something like that, actually, oh, you know what, they don't really need me here this morning, but they've said on Thursday afternoon, we're really busy. I could maybe start a couple of hours later and change it over. There's no sweat off my back. I didn't actually really need you here right now. That's such a lovely workflow. They didn't speak to anyone. They didn't have to exaggerate their condition. Oh, I feel sick. Can I have a sick day? They didn't have to use their leave balance. You just look and shift if the opportunity presents itself, okay? And that's a game changer, because sometimes there's just no reason for you to not be at work. Sometimes we just don't feel like it. So in this case, it's saying, if I just click back quickly, you'll see it's purple and it's green. So it's saying you could move a portion of your shifts, or you could take leave. Yeah, it's up to you. Sometimes we don't want to make up the time somewhere else. We do want to take leave. You're hearing what I'm saying. I'm saying we're giving them options that they can self-serve, and it's all based on business rules. Here at that 9 o'clock to 10:30, maybe I'm someone who's returning to work and I'm sitting at home and I've got a spare couple of hours. So yeah, sure, I'll pick up a task for that hour and a half, pick up some extra work. They can do that from there as well. They can request absenteeism. So I can notify you that I'm going to be sick today or tomorrow, for example. This is all about the here and now. It's not about your long-term leave. Again, you don't need to speak to anybody, and notifications will fire in-app email to let the supervisors and etc. know that somebody's taking leave, and you can configure that how you want. Automatically syncs with paid time, PTO, sorry, this is American, paid time off systems, which is our HR systems, and your activity codes. So it can check against things like the time off manager if you're using NICE to make sure that you have balance for that request. We also have alerts. Now, alerts, all right. We have people working from home. We may not see them all the time, but again, I'm really big on this. I don't want things just popping and firing on my screen all the time. So we have a very sophisticated alert library that enables you to set thresholds as to when things will trigger. We can triage them around the business. So Fran is my supervisor. Perhaps I get the alert first. I'm still out of adherence, for example. I'm still out of adherence, for example, on threshold 2. And then it will go to Fran and say, hey, Nadia's been out of adherence for threshold 1, 2, and escalates. Yeah. So we can do things like that. And we also have a very strong depth of expertise in our organization of people who've helped other customers set this up. So we have consultants to help me work through what is appropriate. All right, how about this? Okay, I don't know how I feel about this. This takes the concept of adherence all the way on its head. Some people love it. I don't know. Adaptive breaks and lunches, right? Here we go. A person is talking with a customer, chatting, emailing, whatever the heck they're doing. The interaction takes longer than usual. Were you with me so far? The employee is late for break or lunch. And the employee is now out of adherence. Then somebody has to go and explain. And then somebody enters an exception to fix the break. Yeah. So some people like this flow. It's okay for them. I'm like, I want to see what actually happened. I don't necessarily feel if your target for adherence is right, you shouldn't really have to adjust this, but bear with me. We have technology. You can choose to use it or no. So NICE has the ability in our automation platform to have adaptive breaks. So it knows that the employee is out because they're on that interaction. And here's the words that may make some of us cringe. It automatically will adjust the breaks and lunches when calls go longer than expected. Okay, so we're back to flexibility and all of that. I haven't seen this one really being used in anger yet, but this is a capability of the technology. I'm not really sure 100% how I think about it. I think I'm telling you without telling you what I really think about it. But again, this is the fluidity of things. We have the ability for people who do take that process where they do correct breaks, because people have overstayed or held up on interaction. We can adapt. So it's automated, no intervention, accurately measures true adherence, reduces non-work time that agents spend explaining. Okay, and so it reduces manual intervention is what we're saying, and it can adapt. Okay, moving at speed now. My career path in the world of automation is clear to me. 22% agree. I hope that you are all in this big blue pie. Automation for us in WFM, I can see the benefit of it as per some of the slides that I've just spoken about. I'm a big proponent of it, but I'm somebody who fundamentally agrees that automation, when it comes, people are not, they're not just bits and bytes, they're people. And so our practice is about, remember that heart, this is a weird looking heart, but the heart back at the start, that's us, is putting the humanity into this. So of course, I want to help you to automate what I call transactional task. I'm being polite. I actually kind of have I call it rubbish. Right? I want to move us away from just being folks who updating schedules, right? So in the WFM sphere, I hope that the career path for you is still very clear, even though we're going to bring in these automation elements. And when I talk to you about automation and some of that self-service stuff, this is not like the concept car. We've sold, had a customer just buy 30,000 seats of this recently. We've got a bank in Australia who has also got about 70, 80 customers using this type of self-service technology. So it's here. I was speaking to a customer this morning in Europe who's using a bot to go and one of our robots to go and update all of the coaching time and things like that. So they're now looking at WFM with bots, not from handling the interaction perspective, but from the bots taking over some of those tasks. But for us, we still need to be able to drive that forecast. Go back. We still need to make sure we're capturing all those channels. And that forecast is our bedrock. The more time we can spend in there becoming trusted advisors to the business rather than fiddling around with schedules is the way that we guarantee that we're continuing to drive value and really become trusted within the organization. So very quickly, closing out. So our mobile app is much more than a mobile app. Behind those little green and magenta, it's not purple, it's magenta, and blue shift opportunities that you saw on the mobile app is this platform that integrates to WFM. It understands where there's periods of over or understaffing, and that's how it surfaces up what are the right opportunities for which particular employee. I'm going to go very quickly because I want to take some questions and answers. So we automate the intraday management. We keep looking to make sure that we don't have people who are sitting around doing not very much and that people aren't overutilized. And we are able to send them, would you like to go home early? Would you like to pick up more work? We can also completely automate all these processes that you're seeing on the right-hand side. So where an employee wants to change their schedule, where I want to make a change to their schedule, where there's an unexpected event, or perhaps we need to request urgently more staff than we need. All of this can be automated and happen in less than a minute. That messy workflow that you've seen in the middle, we've all been through that. Hello, I'd like to do this, or who would like overtime, and we try and find the right people, and then we negotiate with them, and then we update their schedule and all that. All that can just disappear. Less than a minute, all automated. We can even push out for more staffing if we need. Things like what you're seeing here, it might be a little hard to view. Is that I'm pushing out like for surge staffing, something's gone wrong, I want 3 more people, and I can see whether the 3 have subscribed through the mobile app or web portal to pick up for that particular event. And I can share this pack later, but also we can do things like, as I mentioned, different alerts and KPI monitoring. If you worked out the maths on how much time you spend on these, you'd see pretty quickly that this is a real win for the organization, as well as doing intraday alerts and real-time alerts. Just very quickly, I might skip by this. I probably talked a little bit, but this is sort of where we're wanting to see customers are wanting to get to. Automation, as we've spoken to, using AI and machine learning, having an omni-channel WFM, and that's cloud. So this is the kind of secret sauce nexus that we're trying to get you to, or could we? I think we actually could. This balance of employee staffing needs and instant resolution. And these are just some of the key areas where we can drive benefit around empowerment and transparency, automation, and accuracy. Oh my gosh, I'm going to pause now, and hopefully we have some questions that I can answer in the last 10 minutes.
We do, Nadia. Thank you. That was fantastic. And, I think, the beauty of all of that you've talked about today is that it still comes back to solving those problems that are not necessarily about WFM. They're about how we enable, how we, I think your first line was you're about the people.
100%.
And this really talks to that. We've got some great questions though coming through here.
Okay.
And quite a few of them came up right from the beginning. So it might be that some of the conversation then, kind of went away to talking about it. But someone did think you, with your forecasting, you could actually forecast our Saturday lotto numbers. So thought that could be good.
I wouldn't be here, Steve. I wouldn't be here.
There's a great question there from Fiona, who calls out that she used to be an agent, so she loves that idea of the flex time, that self-selecting.
Yeah.
But from a WFM perspective, how can you effectively build rosters and schedules still that maintain service levels? So it's that push-pull almost, isn't it, of control and letting control go a little bit. So
yeah, 100%. So it's still all rules driven, our platform. So it understands what is your tolerance for under and overstaffing for each particular work item within the organization. So it wouldn't have offered somebody the opportunity to take leave or to self-swap if there wasn't the capability for them to do so. That wouldn't have appeared. What it will look like, it'll say it'll either be empty or it'll say not available. So it's because it knows who that employee is. It understands the demands, the forecast versus actual, plus your business rules, in order to surface up that opportunity in the first place. So they can't break anything that you haven't configured.
So it goes back to that foundation piece you said, you've got to have that laid out first and be able to almost personalize those offers.
100%.
The next one here from Mark is, again, a little bit about those routing rules in that scheduling, and asking if it takes into account that chat concurrency. And I think you kind of got there when you showed us that graphic where it really connects with that, sort of end-to-end investment. But equally is talking about the amount of work effort versus total time taken for a chat interaction. How does the system take that into account when it's building the schedules that you've talked about?
Yeah, 100%. So the NICE WFM can now account for concurrency by employee, concurrency by the chat itself, and then a maximum or mean channel concurrency as well. So we can do things like, say, across all the channel mix, the maximum concurrency should be 10, and then down to the particular work item. You can also do things like perhaps somebody is new within the organization and we are going to have a very limited concurrency for them. And then as they progress through training, they accrue a higher number of concurrency. So you can set it at the channel limit, at the contact type limit level, and also direct down to the employee, as well as by date range. Sorry, my dog has had enough of me talking about WFM.
All very challenging when you build in those attrition rates that you called out at the beginning.
Yes.
There's something here from Mark in relation to leave, and you did reference how this can talk to HR systems, but he's talking about a reluctancy that they're seeing with staff since COVID for taking leave in advance? And how do you actually make sure you've got, some sort of balance with that well-being as well?
I would almost need to ask a question back because I haven't heard anybody else say that. I wonder if it's because they're saving it up for
something big.
Yeah. Staff are reluctant to take leave in advance. Ensuring you take leave is important. How can we encourage staff to take time off? So definitely sorry, I'm reading and talking. The last part of the question is what is available to monitor leave accruals. So one of the biggest, pretty much every WFM tender I respond to, and all of you customers out there all want HR integrations from the WFM to HR. So we are constantly working to push and pull data from WFM to HR. The last part of the question is what is available to monitor leave accruals. So it depends if you want the HR system or the WFM to be the master or the slave in that case. Our WFM certainly has the ability to have accrual tables. You can set up accrual rules per leave category. But the crux of the question, reluctant to take leave in advance, I think that may be something to talk to your operations team, maybe find out a little bit why, because it doesn't actually, I don't know whether the leave rules are in your, if there's something about that they just get one leave bucket and they're trying to keep it for sick and paid time off, I'm not sure. But Mark, and anyone actually on the call, if I don't get to your question, you're always welcome to LinkedIn with me and we can chat separately. But certainly we do have integrations and application level rules to monitor leave accruals. Yeah.
A good question here around employee engagement tools, and if there's, if you've got any data on how much employee engagement tools such as these impact on actual staff engagement. What do you see?
100% we do.
Yeah.
We can send some use cases and video testimonials as to how that's boosted employee engagement in different organizations. Yeah. I don't have the numbers that I can recite off the top of my head, but we do have some published use cases that I can share from various customer testimonials.
Yep, definitely. Yep. So again, it's kind of following on from that. There's another question here in relation to, with the focus for most employees having flexibility, that it's great for staff engagement, but how is NICE providing a solution to balance between that flexibility and cost? So still the cost of service with the FTE, how is the system supporting balance, I guess, is kind of the question there.
In the current environment,
FTE agreements and all that sort of stuff, again, some of this will have different applications.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry, Fran. Sometimes it takes me a minute to order the words in my, okay. All right. Sorry, a couple of options available for you there. This is a very good question. So WFM, right? It's important to know that we are all about solving how many staff do we need to maintain a certain level of service. Cost is not always at the forefront of what the WFM is about, even though of course it's an important consideration. So there's a couple of ways that you can model that in NICE WFM. There's two areas that spring to mind. One, we have a very sophisticated what if scheduling function, which sits in our schedule bidding module. So you can run what if scheduling scenarios. So let's say you wanted to introduce some flexibility and you say, I wonder if you had this array of shifts to choose from NICE, what pattern of shifts would you choose? 2 hour, 4 hour, 6 hour, whatever. And that has a costing element in there as well. So where you can look at a cost to serve from that particular pattern plan. And our long-term capacity planner called the personnel planner also has a cost where you can model out different rates of labor, and that can be an output of that plan as well.
Excellent.
But yeah, sorry, go ahead, Fran.
No, I was just going to say we are pretty much bang on time, and there's some really good questions here, and it might be worth when we send out info, we'll actually send some of those out so people can actually see what was asked. There's a great one here in relation to engagement and productivity. If we're able to see all these aspects of adherence, what's that connection then to productivity? Is there ways we can kind of trigger where it's higher or lower or dropping? Which again, as a practitioner, it's a great question.
Yes, so absolutely we can. So the second part of the question, perhaps notify if these are dropping either to leader or consultant. That's a tick, tick, tick. Productivity is an interesting one for WFM. Sometimes we know about what is. So I know, like, I can tell, for example, how many interactions somebody has handled. But often people look to other solutions like desktop analytics, where they want to understand exactly what people are doing while they're on that interaction, the process that they took to close an interaction from woe to go. And that tends to sort of have a more beefier response or capability around productivity. Whereas WFM still, again, is about solving for that, how many staff do we need to make a certain service level objective. So a broad answer for Zach is definitely yes. I do find some other parts of our kit are more directed towards productivity measures, such as performance management or desktop analytics, than WFM tends to be.
Yeah.
Do I have to pick a question? That's the best question.
You do. It's a toughie because there's really good ones there. You could talk forever.
I'm scrolling up and down. Okay.
Well, we'll let you look, but I'll just say what a great session. And Nadia, as always, I think people could listen to you forever, because again, you bring that mix of what's emerging and what's available with just a deep understanding of customer, and it just makes such a difference for people hearing it. So thanks for today. It was awesome. I've just given you 5 seconds. Have you picked the best question?
Let me just, some of them have gone into answered quickly. All right, let me go over there. I think the cost versus flexibility. I think I didn't speak much about cost, and that's introduced a new element to it that also needs to be considered. So I'd like the best question to go to Ankit Jindal for bringing in a different element, and that's why I've awarded it today. Simply, you've brought in cost, which I didn't bring in, and you're right, it is an important component of that secret sauce, and maybe it's a little cherry on top. So I'm awarding best question to Ankit Jindal. Thank you.
Well done. Thank you, Nadia. Thank you, everybody, for coming along today. And we'll send out in a follow-up email details of the session and a link to the recording. But thanks. Keep watching out for what's next. But great session, Nadia. Thanks a lot.
No worries. Thanks, everyone. As I mentioned, I am on LinkedIn. I'm active on there. You're welcome to connect. And we'll take the questions and we can keep responding. Thank you so much for your participation. Pleasure as always. And thank you to Auscontact for the opportunity.